Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagay. Well, chaos has completely taken over Canada due to the rhetoric and bullcrap that the media and pretty much the entire federal party in power today has done. They have caused most of this grief to strike Canada. And mainstream is still pandering to their outright hate for Donald Trump, as opposed to being Canadian, being strong and patient. I have no words. Some of the stuff coming out of Trudeau and especially Doug Ford is astonishing. They're digging a hole and pushing Canada into it and going to allow the United States to bury us. We need an election like 4 months ago. But thanks to our Supreme Court, by proving how absolutely irrelevant they really are to the citizens, they haven't done anything on the prorogation of Parliament, thus holding us hostage to the Liberal Party and the NDP. I'm going to play a couple clips from what came out of the American administration in the last 8 hours about Canada. And then we're going to go into Dougie Ford. This guy is such a he's a liberal. He only barks when he knows he can get some type of acclaim or vote for it. Other than that, he's a minion. He is a minion. But there is only one thing that he did say at the end of his press conference that I'm going to show you that I was actually a little bit impressed about. And it's about time he said it. So let's start off with J.D. Vance.
What do you need to see from Canada to roll back these tariffs?
Look, the president's going to have conversations with the Canadians. We need to see real engagement on the fentanyl issue, on the drug issue. That is fundamentally the underlying element of these tariffs, is we think the Canadians have not been serious about stopping the drug trade. Now, people will sometimes say, well, if you look at the numbers, the Mexicans send way more fentanyl into the United States than the Canadians do. The Canadians have allowed a lot of fentanyl to come into the country. It's not a defense to say more has come from Mexico, because way too much has come from Mexico too. Great, thank you.
They know down there that we haven't done anything on all of the ships coming in. We inspect less than 1%. They know this. Their agencies have been telling them for years about how, especially in the last 9 years, go figure, coinkydink, the drug trade in Canada has exploded and put us on the global stage as being one of the largest distributors of cocaine, fentanyl, and all the rest of those nasty drugs. They know this. Not a peep. Instead, we hear lies. We've done it. Oh, we've got helicopters. We've got a shuttered parliament that's been prorogued and allowed to happen through the NDP. And the money they're allotting, where are they getting the money from? They're taking it from other agencies. Our provinces are spending the money on federal jurisdiction to try and protect the borders. There's been more drug busts made public and actually happening since Trump brought it up. Why did it take Trump and his administration to actually get the RCMP to start busting these operations? Media, crickets. That's all they care about, is protecting the people who give them money. We have to defund media. Make it on your own or go out of business. We're going to move on to what the Speaker of the House had to say. Listen to his words carefully. It's important.
Do you speak on Ukraine?
What's
there are major tariffs that have obviously going into place today. Lots of concerns from the business community, from Americans. What is your message to those who are very worried that we could be at the start of a long and painful trade war?
Well, look, I don't think anybody envisions a trade war or looks forward to that, but I do think President Trump makes a great point. I've always thought of myself, I came up as a Reagan Republican, and we believe in free markets and free trade. And the president was really ahead of his time. Back in 2015, 2016, when he first began to run for president, he would often correct us. He'd say, yes, free trade, but fair trade. And he made a great point. I mean, a lot of people had blinders on. There was all these countries around the world that have taken advantage of America. The America First agenda is to reset those relationships. And his idea of reciprocal tariffs policies is actually really comports with common sense. I mean, if we have a country that we have a huge trade imbalance with because they're charging 100% tariff on imports from the U.S., well, then we need to bring that down. How do we bring it down? By giving them a dose of their own medicine. Now, this is not an adversarial thing. This is to continue good relationships and trade policy. So I think this initiative will achieve that desired result. My suspicion is if there's a country that's charging us hypothetically 100% tariffs on imports and we do the same, they will begin to lower those import tariffs pretty quickly. And you will get back to a point of equilibrium that does resemble free trade again. I think that's good for the American people and for our country. And as the president said, just have a little patience with this. Let it play out, see how it develops, and I think at the end of the day, America is going to be better off. American consumers, American families, and all of us as a nation and as a people. So we support it, and we'll see what happens. And thank you all for being here this morning. Thank you.
Now, you got Chrystia Freeland and the Liberals saying how they did so good on that last USMCA agreement. And truth is, we lost. The Trump administration, you got to remember too, at that time, he was still surrounded by a lot of people that he didn't much like, and he realized that he had to completely change, if he won another election, who he surrounded himself with so he could drain the swamp. They beat the living daylights out of us on that trade deal. And now he's coming for the rest of it. And now, be honest with yourself. If I was to say that my neighbor and I had a free trade deal, that would mean that dollar for dollar would be equal between the two. His chicken's eggs would be worth the same as my chicken's eggs. But since day one, the media and the politicians have put this lie that it's a free trade agreement. And really all it is it is a contract that is saving certain sectors who have a monopoly on those sectors. And it's an agreement and a bargaining tool between these corporations and these entities on trade at the border. This is what Trump wants to end. If we're going to have free trade, let's have what's really free trade. The cartel, like the milk cartel, is destructive policy. It holds back thousands upon thousands of other farmers from being able to get involved in selling milk. And I'm going to tell you right now, I prefer raw milk. I don't want the pasteurized crap. I would like to buy it from my neighbor or get a cow and milk it myself and maybe sell some. But guess what? That's illegal in Canada because of the cartel and the Supreme Court holding and propping up the Laurentian elites and corporations over people. Once again, the Supreme Court shown as a failure for what it is supposed to be. We're going to move on to Dougie, Mr. Dougie Ford, and listen to the crap that comes out of this guy's mouth. But he does do one thing at the end that I appreciate, and we will get to it after. Until then, let's just deduce this.
Hello, Premier. Stephanie Hughes, Bloomberg. As far as your jurisdiction goes, how will you actually implement cutting off or putting outright restrictions on critical minerals and electricity into the U.S.? What does that process look like?
Well, the federal government is in charge of any export So we will be working with the federal government regarding, I use our high-grade nickel, that the U.S., 50% of what they use down there comes from Ontario. If we have to stockpile it, if we have to ship it around the world, that's what we'll do. But I'll be sitting down talking with the Prime Minister this afternoon on the process of going through that.
Follow-up question. Canada's biggest points of leverage with the U.S. are oil, uranium, and potash. What do you have to say about...
Now, I hope Eastern Canada was listening when that reporter asked that. You have no power out east. You've done it to yourselves, and you've sucked and pushed and dragged the western provinces down with you by constantly keeping your feet on our heads. We've argued this for decades. We run lots of little memes, even our papers have shown it, where we feed the cow and you guys milk it. Division is at an all-time high. Trump is going to succeed if you allow and believe what the media and these politicians keep on lying about. She pointed the reality right there, dropped the bomb. Potash, uranium, and oil. So in other words, they are going to sacrifice the West to save the East once again. We've seen Pierre Sr. do this to us. It devastated out West. We were just starting to get over it when the East voted in his dumbass son. Here we are. We're at war with each other. We're at war with the United States when theoretically the actual battle is in Parliament that has been prorogued in order to try and keep themselves in power. Hit social media. We need an election now. Hit social media. Go straight to the Supreme Court of Canada and tell them, tick-tock, tick-tock, get this prorogation figured out. Give us an answer one way or the other. And hopefully this time you defend the actual citizens and stop protecting and propping the government. We need to move on this. And for those of you at hockey games, please quit embarrassing Canada. Instead of booing, why don't you actually chant who caused all of this problem and try to fix our country by saying either F the Liberals or even better, we need an election now.
The premiers of Alberta and Saskatchewan who might be expressing reluctance to put taxes on their products there.
Well, I have absolutely no jurisdiction in Saskatchewan. I consider Scott Moe a good friend of mine. I've served with him longer than any other premier, and I've talked to him. We need to make sure America feels the pain. You know, Donald Trump wants to go after our dairy farmers. Without potash down there, they don't have a farming system.
See? Do you see? Without the West, the East goes down the drain.
And when it comes to uranium, they're using that to enrich their uranium down in the U.S. for their nuclear energy. Again, I do not speak for Saskatchewan or on behalf of Premier Moe, but I will encourage him to ship uranium anywhere. Everyone wants his uranium. Ship it out other places, because the only other place they can get uranium is in Russia.
Now, okay, that's a lie, and I'm going to debunk that. But listen how he finishes off this sentence. Remember, propaganda. Divide and conquer.
And I see President Trump cozying up to Putin.
Hate, right? Hate. That's what they want. They want hate.
What a disaster that is. He attacks his closest friends and neighbors, stood shoulder to shoulder with them in wars and other crises. And who does he cozy up to? But Putin. You got to be kidding me.
Yes, Doug, you have to be kidding me that you are that dumb. Unbelievable. Now I'm going to show you something. This is world uranium exports. Who's number one on the list? Kazakhstan, 3.4 billion, 58.7% of natural uranium exports. Then comes Canada at 1.8, which is 31.6%. Then comes the United States at 5.1%, Uzbekistan at 2.5%, Russia 1.1%. Are you seeing this now? The media has been saying the exact same thing. It is an outright lie. They're trying to get you to hate Russia, to pass this narrative, to keep Ukraine in context, which everything's starting to get divulged right now. It's all, the truth is finally starting to come out, but they're going to keep pushing this narrative to stay in power. And guess what? Ontario fell for it and voted this idiot back in power again, albeit the second lowest government, the second lowest populous government elected in Ontario's history. 49% of the people came out to vote, of those registered to vote. It's embarrassing. I wish the other 50.5% or 50.1% would have tried to vote for an actual conservative party. Derek Sloan, I apologize. I have nothing to say except we are trying to cure the media lies. Please like, share, spread the word. We've got to stop this media, this legacy lying media. We need a reality check, and the only way to do it is through independent media who doesn't get paid by the government. So now that we've shown that crap, let's move on to a little bit later on what he says.
Hey, good afternoon, Premier Colin DeMello from Global
Hi,
News. During the election, you had mentioned, or you had proposed something in the neighborhood of $18 billion in terms of economic supports.
Yes.
Can you actually deliver those economic supports without the legislature first voting on it?
Yes, we can. Yeah, I confirm that, Colin. We can move forward and get that done. We're going to be there. I'll spare no expense, just similar to the pandemic. I'm going to support the people. I have the confidence in the people of Ontario. We will bounce back stronger and more united than ever. We've learned lessons here. We've learned lessons that we shouldn't be taking 10 years when there's hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion worth of critical minerals the world want. And we're hitting barrier after barrier, no matter if it's a federal government or other areas. The federal government, when it comes to critical minerals and the Constitution, it falls under the provinces and the territories. Please, get out of our way. We need to get shovels in the ground. We need to get these minerals back up and shipped out right across the world and across Ontario.
So
Again, verbal diarrhea. Now he's saying, "Oh, we need to get shovel. Well, we gotta get the federal government out of the way." Where have you been the last 9 years? Where have you been? This has been an argument out west. It's been on the tongues and lips of everybody out west for 8.5 years. The federal government and their green initiative has completely shut down our resource sector. Mines have closed, companies have left, our economy is dying. And now, all of a sudden, he's going to make this some big political stool to stand on. How about when you were getting all of these green EV funding that you were matching with your provincial taxpayer dollars? Why didn't you make that a negotiating plot? Oh, right, because it wouldn't have looked good and you would have lost votes. You don't do the right thing because you want to get power. He's had all the chance in the world. No other province has dealt as much or gotten as much political funding, federal funding, as his province. And he sat there and almost held hands and kissed Trudeau every time. And where are those businesses today? They're shut down, they have closed down, they have moved, or they're saying, well, no, we're just going to slow production or stop production until we get the market feel out. All of that money was a waste. It was all a ploy for them to hold power. None of those businesses should have been given any money to come to Canada. If Canada was such a great place to invest money, people would be flooding into our nation. They would be banging down the government's doors. Kind of like what they're doing to Trump right now. He has a lineup of people, of countries that are trying to get in and sign deals. He has taken deals first from all of the countries that we were supposed to go and get deals with, but got shut down. And now Trump is surrounding us and securing those deals for the United States. Japan LNG, the minerals in Ukraine. I could go on and on and on. Where are we going to ship them to now that everybody finally got on the actual Canada train? Where are we going to go when those deals have been swept up behind us because our government hasn't allowed us to actually do business outside of the United States? The suicide comes from within. It ain't Trump. He's taking advantage of years, and I would have to say decades, of bad policy, of Eastern, or should say Central, because it's more Ontario and Quebec, controlling what everybody else does. They've been wanting our oil out east for decades. Decades. And now you think you're going to cut power off? Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Because they'll just shut the taps off from our oil coming up to you, because it comes up through the states thanks to your Eastern or your centralized Laurentian elite. Welcome to reality, people. This is Canada. This is why the West is so eager to create either its own country or to maybe become the 51st state. I'm hearing that more and more, although the main people that are into the separatist movement don't want to be the states, but they're saying the smart thing, which is now's the best time to succeed and start our own country, because we would have America's backing to do it. And guess what? Trump would. It would be right up his alley. So you can thank the East. You can thank all of these liberal voters who keep putting these Laurentian elite in power and allowing them to step on the heads of Western Canada and the businesses and resources that have been making Canada and keeping it afloat for decades. Now, listen to what the turd has to say and watch carefully how CTV pans the camera to make it some somber, beautiful speech. Propaganda is real. More and more people are watching it. That's why trust in media is down to 13%.
Canadians are not angry at the American people for this. We don't have anything against Americans. Americans are our neighbors, our friends, our partners. We do things together. We've done things together for decades and generations. This is a policy decision by the American government designed to go after the Canadian economy. This is a trade war, yes. But Canadians are hurt. Canadians are angry. We're going to choose to not go on vacation in Florida or Old Orchard Beach or wherever. We're going to choose to try to buy Canadian products and forego bourbon and other classic American products. And yeah, we're probably going to keep booing the American anthem. But let me tell Americans, we're not booing you. We're not booing your teams. We're not booing your players. We're booing a policy that is designed to hurt us.
Playing on your heartstrings for something he created. Yes, you are hurting the Americans by booing. You're not hurting the administration at all. You're not really hurting Trump, although you're just really poking the bear a little bit more. You're pissing off America, which is driving them to want this trade war even more. This is the only thing out of the entire press conference that Dougie said that I actually was impressed with.
And please don't take it out on the American people. And I ask you one more thing. Please do not boo the national anthem in Canada or in the US. These are soldiers that fought for our freedoms, our democracies, our sovereignty. They've laid their lives on the line. I had an opportunity to talk to General Romer the other day. What an American hero he is. You know, he sent over a list of some of the items that I'm going to review. But my goodness, boo the referee, boo the players if you want. Do not boo the American national anthem. And to my American friends, do not boo the Canadian national anthem. That's crossing the line. One other thing I want to mention is my friend Wayne Gretzky. He's the most patriotic Canadian there is anywhere on the planet. You know, as other Canadian athletes go down to the U.S., they hand in their Canadian passport and get an American passport to pay lower taxes. You know, I talked to Wayne the other day, and he was so choked up talking to me. You know, he is a patriot. He loves Canada. He never gave up his Canadian passport. So, you know, folks, give the guy a break. Just give him a break.
I agree 100% with that statement. Instead of booing, how about do Canada good and chant, "We need an election now. We need an election now. We needed it 4 months ago, but we never got it because you have people like this." Listen to him today.
This is serious. Given the gravity of what we're up against, I'm calling on an emergency session of Parliament like we had in the pandemic. What we're witnessing could be worse than the pandemic, and very likely will be worse.
You remember what they did during the pandemic that this guy backed? Do you remember what they did to us during the pandemic? And by the way, all of what happened during the pandemic is coming out in Doge. It is an eye-opener, and there's going to be millions of people with their heads between their legs pretending that they never helped push these incredibly socialist, fascist ideas on other citizens. It's coming. Trust me, it's coming.
But Canadians are ready to fight back. And so my promise is we should fight back as well as elected officials. So an emergency session of Parliament where we do three things. One is we need to put in place supports for workers.
Okay, I'm not going to listen to any more of this because his whole press conference, you can't trust anything he says. Why do I say that? Well, I say that because this is the reality of Singh.
Justin Trudeau's Liberals have let down Canadians.
This is a month ago.
They have let you down when it comes to the cost of homes. He's let you down when it comes to the cost of living. And frankly, it's not just Justin Trudeau. It's every Liberal minister, every Liberal MP who looked down their nose at you when people were saying we can't make ends meet. We are struggling with the cost of living. So it doesn't matter who the next Liberal leader is. They've let you down. They do not deserve another chance. They're more interested in themselves than the struggles of Canadians. We've got serious threats of Donald Trump and tariffs that put in question hundreds and thousands of Canadian jobs. And instead of focusing on you and protecting your jobs, they're worried about themselves.
Okay. This was while Parliament was still in session.
Is at stake here. So why are you continuing to prop up the government who you say isn't taking democracy seriously? Why do you continue to prop them up?
So the question is, what are we going to do about it?
No, the question is why do you continue to prop up the government when you say our democracy is at stake and this government is not taking our democracy seriously? Why continue to back them up?
We're not at all doing that. What we're saying is we're going to demand answers. We're going to continue to push for solutions. Because we're in Parliament right now, I was able to read these documents. Because we're in Parliament now, we've been able to push for a letter to have the public inquiry also include the Conservative leadership race in a part of the public inquiry's work. We want to use the tools as parliamentarians, as a parliamentarian myself, to use the tools that we have, that I have, to advance democracy. I want to use...
Mainstream didn't really show a lot of that, did they? And how about, why are we here today?
For the third time this fall, the Liberal government has staved off a potential election, surviving the latest non-confidence motion in the House of Commons.
We have put forward a motion inspired by the leader of the NDP.
Pierre Poilievre doing that not just to try and force an election, but to put Jagmeet Singh in a political bind, structuring his latest Opposition Day motion around quotes like this.
The fact is, the Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people.
The NDP leader said that when he ripped up the supply and confidence agreement he had with the Liberals, and has continued to publicly be critical of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Julian.
Miss Matheson.
But the New Democrats voted with the government, enough to keep the Prime Minister in power.
That should come as no surprise that we're not going to vote in favor of any of their games, because that's what they're doing. They're playing games.
Monsieur Désilet.
For the first time this fall, the Bloc Québécois voted non-confidence in the Liberals, likely leaving the NDP as the only party Justin Trudeau can work with to pass any legislation.
Which he did. 3 times. And then Trudeau prorogued Parliament. He is the reason we are here today. Yes, Justin Trudeau prorogued Parliament. But we are here because that man used his power to hold Canada hostage, hoping that he could gain some votes as the Liberals were falling in the polls. Well, guess what? The polls are now saying that pretty much all of the gains that are coming to the Liberals are from the NDP party, which I am so glad to hear, although I don't know why they're going to the Liberals. They're birds of the same feather. These are the guys that put us in the position we're in right now. And it even sounds like Jagmeet's going to lose his seat. So please, people, a couple favors to ask. If you're on social media, go to the Supreme Court, look them up, and comment on them and tell them, TikTok, TikTok, shit or get off the pot. Do your job for once for the citizens. Get Parliament back open so we can have an election. And number 2, please quit booing at the sporting events. It's so un-Canadian. Think about why we're here and chant that instead. Chant, we need an election now. We needed it 3 or 4 months ago. We actually needed it 3 years ago. But we need it more now than ever. I hope you enjoyed today. I'm going to see if I can live stream the joint session of Congress. So make sure that you share, like, and subscribe, and punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future updates. Until the next time, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal, and I've been your host, alias Tagay.